In August of 1930, the Holy Synod of the Patriarchate of Constantinople elected the then Metropolitan of Corfu, Athenagoras, as the new Archbishop of the tumultuous Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of North and South America. Athenagoras' appointment was heralded by numerous voices. Greek newspapers in Athens, the two daily Greek papers in New York, that is the Atlantis and the National Herald, all spoke of the positive qualities of the newly appointed Archbishop. It was a time of hope and promise for the fragmented Archdiocese and for the Greeks in America. An editorial in the journal Ecclesia, an official publication of the Church of Greece, captures this excitement. Quote, "Is there anything disappointing about this election? It is that the Church of Greece will be deprived of the further services of Athenagoras. The Greeks of America are fortunate to have acquired such a hierarch by divine providence." As is so marvelously presented in the new exhibit at the St. Photius Shrine, Archbishop Athenagoras' archiepiscopal ministry combined brilliant leadership with pastoral sensitivity to an archdiocese awash in division. His accomplishments during his 18 years in America are well known and wonderfully on display in the new exhibit. Significantly, Archbishop Athenagoras pushed into the background while he was Archbishop of America. He pushed into the background the divisions among Greek immigrants over political loyalties in Greece. He established the Holy Cross Seminary, which, in a little more than a decade, will celebrate its 100th anniversary. He founded the Philoptochos Society. He moved the Archdiocese from Queens to the Upper East Side in New York City, where it is today. He inaugurated the Orthodox Observer. He purchased, with the critical aid of Philoptochos, property in Garrison, New York to house St. Basil's, and the list could go on. Although these actions became foundational for the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America, I am rather going to focus my comments not on these well-known accomplishments of the Archbishop, but rather on his wide-ranging legacy, which is the product of who he was as a person and reflects the influences upon him across his expansive journey through life. Aristokles Mattheos Spirou, the future Archbishop Athenagoras of America, was born on April 6, 1886 in the village of Vasilikoa, at that time named Saraplana. It is located about 35 miles north of Ioannina, Greece, and about 10 miles south of the Greece-Albanian border. At the time of his birth, the village was part of the Ottoman Empire. Archbishop Athenagoras speaks fondly of his village, quote, "It was a village of about 500 families on a wind-blown mountain plateau snowbound in water. There was a chapel dedicated to St. Elias on the hilltop overlooking the village. When you left the house in the morning, the chapel was the first thing you saw. You felt protected. There were Christians and Muslims in Saraplana, and everyone lived peacefully together. There were no quarrels, no fights, no lawsuits. Christian and Muslim children played together. The Christian family would invite their Muslim friends to a baptism, and the Muslims would invite us for their child's circumcision." When he was 13 years old, both Aristokles and his mother became ill. The illness took his mother's life and left the young Aristokles sick for nearly 2 years. After completing his high school education in 1903, he immediately enrolled at the Halki Theological School on the Prince's Islands located outside of Constantinople. In 1906, his father passed away, leaving the 21-year-old seminarian an orphan. After completing his theological education, in 1910, he was ordained a deacon and assigned as archdeacon of the metropolis of Monasterion and Pelagonia. Located in what is now part of the border area between Greece and the Republic of North Macedonia, the metropolis of Monasterion and Pelagonia was at that time under the jurisdiction of the Ecumenical Patriarchate and part of the Ottoman Empire. The metropolis witnessed massive political unrest during Athenagoras' time, most notably during the Balkan Wars of 1912 and World War I, the latter bringing about the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. In 1919, Archdeacon Athenagoras retreated to Mount Athos, where he spent nearly a year discerning his calling. It was then that he was requested to serve as secretary to the newly appointed Archbishop of Athens, Meletios Metaxakis, whom he served under for the next 3 years, and who will become a major player in the establishment of the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of North and South America. In 1922, following the removal of Meletios as Archbishop of Athens, Athenagoras was elevated and appointed Metropolitan of Corfu, where he served until his appointment as Archbishop of America in 1931. Skipping over for a moment his time as Archbishop of North and South America, Archbishop Athenagoras was elected Patriarch of Constantinople in November of 1948 by the Holy Synod of the Patriarchate of Constantinople, the same synod that had elected him Archbishop of America 18 years earlier. Recently released CIA and U.S. State Department records indicate what had been suspected long ago, that as a U.S. citizen, Archbishop Athenagoras was seen by the U.S. government as an ally to strengthen U.S.-Turkish relations in the context of the nascent Cold War. Thus, it should come as no surprise that Athenagoras flew from New York to Istanbul to begin his duties as Patriarch of Constantinople on a U.S. military plane provided by Truman. The use of a United States government airplane is indicative of the role played by the U.S. in the appointment of Athenagoras as Patriarch. Given that Truman had recently committed U.S. support for the anti-communist government of Greece, Athenagoras' appointment was seen by many in the Greek government as an extension of U.S.-Greece relations, whereas from the U.S. perspective, the staunch anti-communist and pro-American Athenagoras was one of the many arrows in the United States' anti-Russian quiver. From the time of his arrival in Istanbul, Patriarch Athenagoras diligently served the needs of the Greek Orthodox communities in Istanbul. Yet he was never content with simply looking inward, that is, focusing only on the local context of the Patriarchate. As he himself said, quote, "I am not a churchman closed up inside the church. I love people." Locally, the Patriarch brought changes to parishes and metropolis organizations of the Greek churches in Turkey, instituting some of the organizational changes and structures that he had inaugurated in America. Regarding the other autocephalous Orthodox or independent Orthodox churches, he initiated a series of theological and administrative gatherings called Pan-Orthodox Conferences. They were held on the island of Rhodes in the early 1960s, in which heads of the various Orthodox churches and their theologians met to establish closer relations with one another and discuss certain practical and theological matters. Well aware of the universality of orthodoxy, Patriarch Athenagoras extended his patriarchal vision towards cultivating relations with non-Orthodox Christian churches. And one might say that this is where Athenagoras made his greatest impact. Occupying the first throne of worldwide Orthodox Christianity, Patriarch Athenagoras projected the prestige and influence of the Ecumenical Patriarchate well beyond the confines of its ecclesiastical jurisdiction, as well as beyond the boundaries of the autocephalous Orthodox churches and onto the Christian international stage. Most significantly, Patriarch Athenagoras created a path of mutual friendship and dialogue with the Roman Catholic Church. This path of reconciliation had 4 major inflection points. The first was the meeting between Patriarch Athenagoras and Pope Paul VI that took place in Jerusalem in early January of 1964. This was the first time since the Council of Florence in 1438 that the Pope and Patriarch had met. The meeting was followed by the most remarkable and impactful action of Athenagoras' patriarchal reign, the lifting of the mutual anathemas of 1054, by which the See of Rome and the See of Constantinople had excommunicated each other 1,000 years earlier. The lifting of these anathemas took place on December 7th, 1965, when Pope Paul VI in Rome and Patriarch Athenagoras in Constantinople simultaneously read a joint declaration which annulled the anathemas that each church had issued against the other. The two final events occurred with each of the two leaders making personal visits to the other's church. In July of 67, Paul VI visited the FINAL in Constantinople, and in October of the same year, Athenagoras visited the Vatican. Athenagoras' 24 years as Patriarch of Constantinople were filled with many other significant contributions about which we don't have time to speak. But let me reflect on his overall legacy. And this legacy not only includes his influence as Patriarch of Constantinople, but most significantly his influence and leadership as Archbishop of North and South America. I have 5 brief observations. First is his impact on the Greek Orthodox Church here in the United States. Perhaps his most significant contribution was that of peacemaker for the Greek Orthodox communities in the 1930s. The impact of the politics of Greece upon the immigrant communities in the United States was quite profound. Athenagoras is believed to have said, and I paraphrase here, something to the effect that, quote, "Leave your politics outside the door of the church and then pick them up when you leave church to go home." But his challenges were not limited to Greek politics. His arrival in 1931 coincided with a major change in the structure of the archdiocese. Whereas the archdiocese under its first charter issued in 1922 was a semi-autonomous archdiocese with an archbishop and 3 diocesan bishops, one in Boston, one in Chicago, and one in San Francisco, and forming a traditional Orthodox synodal organization, the 1931 charter did away with diocesan bishops and placed all of the ecclesiastical authority of the archdiocese in the person of the archbishop. This not only gave Athenagoras the direct authority over all of the Greek Orthodox parishes in America, it also allowed for the development of a more centralized archdiocesan organization. For some of the independently minded immigrant Greeks and their clergy, such a move was un-American and was perceived as limiting the authority of the parish priest and the independence of the local parish. In response, a renegade Greek Orthodox priest named Christophoros Kontageorge got himself ordained as a bishop at the hands of 2 Orthodox bishops, one Albanian and one Syrian. He was joined by 2 additional Orthodox clergy serving in America, one Greek and one Russian, and they were likewise ordained, and the 3 newly ordained bishops established an autocephalous Archdiocese of America and Canada. Its headquarters were in Lowell, Massachusetts, and was independent of the Patriarchate of Constantinople and the Archdiocese now being led by Athenagoras. Lowell was already a hotbed of royalist support and had seen an earlier independence Episcopal movement based upon royalist loyalties, political loyalties in 1924. Athenagoras met these challenges head on with his requisite pastoral skills and commanding presence. It is said that he visited nearly all of the Greek Orthodox parishes in America during his first several years, bringing a message of reconciliation and concord to a fragmented archdiocese. Yet he did more than bring peace and structure to the Greek Orthodox parishes throughout the United States. As important as this was, he attempted with much success to elevate the archdiocese into the greater consciousness of the Greek American community. The establishment of a seminary in 1937, initially located in Pomfret, Connecticut, and then moved to its present location in Brookline, Massachusetts in 1947, provided the Greek Orthodox parishes with American-born clergy. The proper education and training of clergy was a key component of the Archbishop's plan for an American church. Yet what he perhaps didn't realize at the time was the impact that the establishment of Holy Cross would eventually have on the unity of the archdiocese. By the year 2000, Archbishop Demetrius, then Archbishop of America, could note that upwards of more than 80% of all clergy serving the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America were graduates of Holy Cross. Such a shared educational and formational experience both centralized and grounded the clergy of the archdiocese with common experiences and identities that fostered cohesion within the archdiocese. Today, Holy Cross has kept a national and international reputation. Alongside the establishment of Holy Cross, it is the creation and organization of the Philoptoos Society under Athenagoras' leadership that has continued to have an impressive and significant impact. As a grassroots, parish-focused organization with limitless vision, the Philoptoos Society has become the most significant arm of philanthropic ministry of the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese. Second, Archbishop Athenagoras' impact on the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese continued in his role as ecumenical patriarch. At the helm of the ecumenical patriarch was a man with intimate knowledge of and direct ties to the Greek American and Orthodox community in America. In some sense, we could say that Archbishop Athenagoras' leadership of the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America continued throughout his 24 years as patriarch, ending only with his death in 1972. Seen from this perspective, Athenagoras directly impacted the life of the Greek Orthodox communities in America for more than 40 consecutive years. It was during his patriarchal tenure that America was given the leadership of two enlightened archbishops, Michael and Iakovos. Two of Archbishop Iakovos' most controversial moves, his joining with Martin Luther King Jr. in Selma, Alabama in 1965, and the recognition by the 20th Clergy Laity Congress of the Archdiocese for the use of English in liturgical services, took place while Athenagoras was patriarch. Regarding Iakovos' attendance at the memorial service for Reverend James Reeb in Selma on March 15, 1965, I have not done the necessary archival work to see if the patriarch had any response to this. However, this is not the case for the language issue of 1970. The decision of the Clergy Laity Congress to allow the formal use of English in the liturgy was rejected by Patriarch Athenagoras and the Holy Synod in Constantinople. This was a blow to Archbishop Iakovos, who obediently acquiesced to the rejection. With perhaps silence on the first issue and active obstruction on the other, Patriarch Athenagoras' impact on the Church in America was still being felt. Third, on the international Orthodox stage, Athenagoras made two major contributions. He elevated the role and exposure of the ecumenical patriarchate within worldwide orthodoxy and opened the door for rapprochement between Roman Catholicism and the Orthodox Church. Writing at the time of the patriarch's death, Time magazine noted that, quote, his gift had been one of reconciliation, close quote. The historic and unprecedented meetings between Athenagoras and Paul VI, along with the lifting of the anathemas of 1054, paved the way for the establishment of two of the most significant theological dialogues that the Orthodox Church has taken part in. The Joint International Commission for Theological Dialogue between the Catholic and Orthodox Churches, and the North American Orthodox Catholic Theological Consultation. These dialogues have produced some impressive historical and theological work that contributes to a better theological, ecclesial, and pastoral understanding between the two churches. Though not without controversy and not without some cynicism regarding the actual impact of the theology white papers that these consultations have produced, that is on the day-to-day lives of Roman Catholic and Orthodox faithful, nonetheless, both churches are better off being in conversation. Fourth, coupled with his personal commitment to improving relations with the Roman Catholic Church, Athenagoras was a leader, or perhaps the leader, of the larger ecumenical movement of the day. Since 1920, the Patriarchate of Constantinople has been a key partner in the conversations between various Christian denominations, commonly referred to as the ecumenical movement or ecumenism. In 1948, the Patriarchate was one of the founding members of the World Council of Churches, the largest and most visible entity seeking common ground among Christian churches. Patriarch Athenagoras' contacts with the Roman Catholic Church need to be understood within this larger context of the push towards Christian cooperation and possible unity that found its greatest expressions during the 1950s and 1980s. Athenagoras' overtures to Rome, and in particular his lifting of the anathema against Rome in 1054, brought him fierce criticism from a variety of venues. In particular, the old calendarist churches in Greece, the Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia, and the monasteries of Mount Athos were some of his most vociferous opponents. In fact, several monasteries on Mount Athos refused to commemorate Patriarch Athenagoras after he lifted the anathema of 1054. Finally, my fifth observation regarding Athenagoras' legacy: his vision of Christian leadership encompassed equally the local and the international. He cared deeply for the flock, for his flock, wherever he was, whether he was archdeacon of the metropolis of Monasterium in Pelagonia, where he was essentially an office clerk, responding to all sorts of tedious, needless needs of the faithful, or as Metropolitan of Corfu, where he says that he led a small Jewish community in prayer because they did not have a rabbi. Or when he was Archbishop of America and the love he expressed for Americans, as it was reiterated when Americans would visit the Ecumenical Patriarchate in Constantinople, and to his role as local Bishop of Constantinople, where he wept and felt the pain of the disastrous pogrom of 1955, never abandoning his fellow Orthodox Christians. His love for his local flock coexisted with his love for all, and his realization that Christ's message of service and love transcends geographical and ecclesiastical boundaries. Ailing in health, Patriarch Athenagoras spent the last 3 years of his life mostly in Constantinople. He visited a well-known physician in Austria in 1970 for an undisclosed ailment. After falling at the Patriarchate in 1972, he died shortly thereafter on July 7th. In reporting his death, the New York Times ran a front-page article with a photo of the deceased patriarch, highlighting his contribution not only to worldwide orthodoxy, but to Christianity in general. The Times article provided a physical description of the patriarch, a description that is echoed by nearly everyone who ever met him. Quote, 6 feet 4 inches tall and weighing 200 pounds, he was impressively husky and authoritative, whether dressed in workday black robes or resplendent in ecclesiastical gold garments. He was a majestic figure with a magnificent long woolly beard. Those who received his embrace were all but smothered in it. By all indications, Patriarch Athenagoras was an extrovert. His magnanimous spirit, deep penetrating eyes, strong sonorous voice, coupled with his penchant for reconciliation, transparency, and love for humanity, provided him with the necessary internal disposition and external personality for his long service to Christ, the Church, and the world. We have in Archbishop and then Patriarch Athenagoras a man who held 4 different political citizenships: Ottoman, Greek, U.S., and Turkish. Thus, it should come as no surprise that the patriarch is quoted as saying, quote, "I'm a citizen of the world." Indeed, his entire life reflects this. But so does his ecclesiastical ministry. Wherever he went, he became a supporter of his host country in order to share the message of the gospel, the message of Christ's love for each individual and for the world. As patriarch, he was consistently accused of being too pro-Turkish or too ecumenical by those who failed to see his prophetic courage. The words of a well-known Greek-American classicist, John Rexine, writing 5 years after the death of Athenagoras, captures the conundrum of pigeonholing the former patriarch. Quote, accused by his critics of being Protestant and Catholic, pro-American and pro-Turkish, the late patriarch Athenagoras defied all detractors to typecast him and remained pro-Christian, in the best sense of the word, believing firmly in the teaching that God is love, and that as a hierarch and a Christian, it was incumbent upon him to love his fellow human beings, no matter what their race, creed, or color. It's most appropriate for me to end with the words of Athenagoras himself. In a short yet powerful public statement regarding the landing on the moon in the summer of 1969, Patriarch Athenagoras' words reflect his ever-forward-looking vision. Quote, philosophically, the first reaction that comes with the presence of man on the moon is that man is organically tied not only with one planet, but with a whole universe. Now that man has achieved a cosmic biome, we do not know which cosmo-theories nor bio-theories to which new ideas, new penetrations, and a new scale of values unimagined at present this new biome will lead man. Perhaps we are on the eve of the vision of a new wisdom, of a new understanding, of the revelation of God to his creations. Thank you.